The wind howled through the Rockies, sharp as a blade, cutting through my jacket as if it were paper. I stumbled on a loose rock, my heart lurching not just from the near fall, but from the secret I'd carried for years, now heavier than my pack. Beside me, Ethan, my best friend since high school, trudged on, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. We were 3 days into a week-long hike in Colorado's Rocky Mountain National Park, a trip we'd planned for months to escape the grind of our Denver lives. Ethan, 28, with his easy grin and broad shoulders, was the guy everyone loved, charismatic, straight, and effortlessly confident. I, Lucas, also 28, was the quieter one, the guy who overthought everything, especially the way my pulse raced when Ethan laughed too close. I'd known I was gay since I was 16, but I'd never told him. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I couldn't bear the thought of his eyes changing when he looked at me. The trail was brutal that morning, a steep climb through alpine meadows dotted with wildflowers, their colors muted under a gray sky threatening rain. Ethan led, his red jacket a beacon against the green. "You good, Luke?" he called, glancing back. His voice was warm, but I caught a flicker of something concerned. Maybe in his hazel eyes. "Yeah," I lied, adjusting my pack. My legs burned, but the real weight was the truth I'd buried. I was in love with him. Had been for years. And this hike, this stupid, beautiful hike, was my chance to either tell him or let it destroy me. We'd been inseparable since we were kids in suburban Denver, bonding over late-night video games and sneaking beers from his dad's garage fridge. Ethan was the golden boy quarterback, prom king, the guy who dated cheerleaders but always made time for me. I was the artist, the one who sketched in the margins of my notebooks, who saw too much in every glance he gave me. College split us up for a while. He went to Boulder for engineering. I stayed local for art, but we always found our way back. This trip was supposed to be a reset, a way to reconnect after a year of drifting. But for me, it was a reckoning. The trail curved toward a ridge, and we stopped to catch our breath. Below us, the valley sprawled, a patchwork of pines and granite under clouds that looked ready to burst. Ethan pulled out his water bottle, his fingers brushing mine as he handed it over. My stomach twisted. "You're quiet today," he said, squinting at me. "What's up?" I shrugged, my throat tight. Just tired. But my mind screamed, "Tell him. Tell him now." Instead, I pointed at the sky. "Think we'll beat the rain." He laughed, a sound that always felt like home. "Hope so." I didn't pack for a monsoon. He clapped my shoulder, his touch lingering a second too long, and I wondered if I was imagining it. I always wondered. We pushed on, the trail narrowing as it wound through a forest of lodgepole pines. The air smelled of sap and damp earth, and the silence between us grew heavier. I'd planned to tell him on this trip, rehearsed it 100 times in my head. "Ethan, I'm gay, and I love you." But every time I opened my mouth, the words dissolved. What if he pulled away? What if I lost him? By noon, we reached a small clearing where the trail forked. One path led to a lake, the other to a steeper climb toward a summit. Ethan studied the map, his brow furrowed. "Lake's safer if it rains," he said, "but the summit's got that view you wanted to sketch." I hesitated. The summit was riskier, exposed, but the idea of sitting still by a lake felt suffocating. "Summit," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. He grinned. "That's my Luke. Always chasing the view." His words hit harder than they should have, and I looked away, pretending to check my laces. As we climbed, the air grew thinner, the wind colder. My chest ached, not just from the altitude. I watched Ethan's back, the way his jacket stretched across his shoulders, and wondered how I'd let it get this far. Loving him in secret was a slow poison, but the alternative, losing him, was unthinkable. Halfway up, the first raindrops fell, light but insistent. Ethan cursed under his breath, pulling up his hood. "We're committed now," he said, glancing back with a half-smile. "No turning back." I nodded, my heart pounding. No turning back. The rain came harder now, a steady drumbeat on our jackets as we pushed toward the summit. The trail turned slick, rocks glinting under a sheen of water, and I focused on my steps to keep from slipping, both on the path and in my resolve. Ethan was a few paces ahead, his red jacket a blur through the mist, and I wondered if he could feel the weight of my unspoken words. "Almost there," he shouted over the wind, pointing to a jagged outcrop above. His voice was bright, but there was an edge to it, like he was trying to outrun something too. I wanted to ask what, but my courage faltered again. Instead, I nodded, gripping my trekking poles tighter. The summit was a windswept plateau, a slab of granite framed by peaks that vanished into the clouds. We dropped our packs, panting, and Ethan let out a low whistle. "Worth it," he said, gesturing to the view. The valley below was half shrouded in rain, but patches of sunlight broke through, painting the pines gold. I pulled out my sketchbook, more out of habit than inspiration, my fingers numb from the cold. Ethan flopped onto a flat rock, pulling a granola bar from his pack. "You gonna draw this or just stare at it?" he teased, his grin softening the jab. But his eyes lingered on me, searching, and I felt exposed, like he could see the truth I was hiding. I forced a laugh, sitting beside him. "Gotta capture it before it's gone." My pencil moved across the page, tracing the jagged horizon. But my mind was on him, and the way his breath fogged in the air, the way his knee brushed mine as he shifted. I'd drawn him 1,000 times in secret, quick sketches in the margins of my life. But here, with him so close, it felt like a confession. The rain slowed to a drizzle, and Ethan leaned back, hands behind his head. "This is what it's about, right? Just this." He waved a hand at the mountains, the sky. "No noise, no bullshit. Just us." My heart stuttered. Just us. I wanted to grab those words, hold them close, but they slipped away like the mist. "Yeah," I said, my voice barely audible. "Just us." He turned to me, his expression unreadable. "You've been weird this whole trip, Luke. Like you're somewhere else." His tone wasn't accusatory, just worried. It broke something in me. "I'm fine," I said too quickly, my pencil snapping in my grip. The sound was sharp, final, and Ethan's brow furrowed. "Bullshit." He sat up, facing me fully. "You're my best friend. I know when you're not okay. So what is it?" The question hung between us, heavy as the clouds above. My mouth opened, then closed. The truth clawed at my throat, but fear clamped it shut. "It's nothing," I said, hating myself for it. "Just work stress. You know." He didn't buy it. I could see it in the way his jaw tightened, the way he looked at me like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Work stress doesn't make you flinch every time I get close," he said quietly. My stomach dropped. He'd noticed. Of course he'd noticed. Ethan, who never missed a detail, who knew me better than anyone. I wanted to run, to dive off this damn mountain and never look back. But his gaze pinned me in place. "I'm not flinching," I lied, my voice shaking. "It's just cold." He didn't respond, just watched me, and the silence was worse than any question. Finally, he sighed, looking out at the valley. "You'd tell me if something was really wrong, right?" I nodded, unable to speak. The lie tasted like ash. We packed up soon after, the moment slipping away as the rain picked up again. The descent was treacherous, the trail a muddy slide, and we focused on not falling. But every step felt like a retreat from the truth. I'd had my chance, and I'd blown it. That night, we set up camp by a small alpine lake, the water mirror-smooth under a clearing sky. Ethan built a fire, his movements precise, practiced. I watched him, the firelight carving shadows across his face, and wondered how much longer I could keep this up. Loving him was a wound I'd chosen, but it was bleeding me dry. As we ate, he talked about his job, his latest failed date, the usual banter. I nodded along, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying that moment on the summit. I'd been so close to telling him, so close to changing everything. "Luke," he said suddenly, his voice cutting through my thoughts. "Whatever it is, you can tell me. You know that, right?" I looked at him, his face half lit by the fire, and for a moment, I believed him. But the words stayed locked inside, and I just nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, I know." The fire crackled, spitting embers into the night as Ethan poked at it with a stick. The lake reflected the stars, a perfect mirror of the sky, and I wished I could disappear into it, away from the weight of my secret. Every time Ethan looked at me, I felt like he was peeling back another layer, getting closer to the truth I wasn't ready to share. We'd set up our tents a few feet apart, the nylon walls thin enough that I could hear him shift in his sleeping bag. I lay awake, staring at the tent's ceiling, my heart a metronome of dread and longing. Tomorrow, we'd hike deeper into the Rockies, toward a remote pass Ethan had found on the map. The isolation felt like both a gift and a curse. More time alone with him, but nowhere to hide. Morning came too soon, the air sharp with frost. Ethan was already up, boiling water for coffee, his breath visible in the dawn light. "Sleep okay?" he asked, handing me a tin mug. His fingers brushed mine, and I pulled back too fast, spilling coffee on my boots. "Fine," I muttered, cursing myself. He raised an eyebrow but didn't push. Instead, he started packing, humming some tune I didn't recognize, and I busied myself with my gear, avoiding his gaze. The trail that day was relentless, a narrow path carved into a cliffside, with a sheer drop to one side and crumbling rock above. Ethan took the lead, his steps sure, while I lagged behind, my mind a tangle of what-ifs. What if I told him? What if he didn't care that I was gay but freaked out about my feelings? What if he never spoke to me again? By midday, we reached a narrow ledge with a view that stopped us cold. The Rockies stretched out like a painting, peaks sharp against a sky so blue it hurt. Ethan dropped his pack and whistled. "This is why we do this, man." He turned to me, his grin wide, and for a moment, I forgot everything me fear. My secret, the ache in my chest. It was just us, like always. I pulled out my sketchbook, my hand steadier now, and started drawing the ridgeline. Ethan watched, leaning closer than he needed to. "You're good. You know that," he said, his voice soft. "Like, really good." I shrugged, my face warm. "It's just a hobby." "Nah, it's more than that." He nudged my shoulder, his touch electric. "You see things most people miss." I froze, my pencil hovering. Did he mean it? Did he see me? I wanted to ask, to spill everything right there. But the moment passed. He stood, stretching, and pointed to a distant peak. "That's where we're headed tomorrow. Gonna be a beast." The rest of the day blurred. More climbing, more silence, more stolen glances at him. My resolve wavered with every step. I'd tell him tonight. I decided. By the fire. When it was just us and the stars. No more hiding. But when we made camp, Ethan was quieter than usual. His usual banter replaced by long pauses. We ate in near silence. The fire's glow casting shadows that danced across his face. Finally, he spoke. His voice low. You ever feel like you're running from something? Luke. I looked up. Startled. What do you mean? He stared into the fire. His jaw tight. Like, there's something you need to face. But you keep putting it off. Scared of what it'll do to you. My heart stopped. Was he talking about me? About us? Or was this about him something I'd missed? Yeah, I said carefully. All the time. He nodded. Like he'd expected that. But didn't elaborate. Instead, he stood, brushing off his jeans. Gonna turn in. Big day tomorrow. He hesitated, then added, You tell me if I did something wrong. Right. The question caught me off guard. You didn't do anything. I said. Too fast. He looked at me, searching again, then nodded and ducked into his tent. I sat by the fire, alone, the weight of his words sinking in. He was running from something too. But what? I wanted to crawl into his tent, demand answers. But instead, I stayed there, the cold seeping into my bones, wondering if I'd ever find the courage to tell him the truth. Dawn broke over the Rockies, painting the peaks in shades of pink and gold. But the beauty felt distant, like a postcard I couldn't touch. Ethan's question from last night echoed in my head. You'd tell me if I did something wrong. Right. It wasn't about him. It was about me, and the secret I carried like a stone in my chest. Today, I promised myself I'd tell him. No more excuses. We broke camp quickly, the air crisp and sharp. Ethan seemed lighter today, cracking jokes as we packed. But I caught him watching me when he thought I wasn't looking. It made my stomach twist, hope and fear tangled together. The trail to the pass was steep, winding through boulder fields and patches of snow that hadn't melted in the high altitude. We moved in sync, our steps a rhythm built over years of friendship. But every glance from him felt like a question I wasn't ready to answer. By noon, we reached a high meadow, the grass studded with tiny purple flowers. Ethan dropped his pack and flopped onto the ground, arms spread wide. This is it. Luke. This is what I needed. He closed his eyes, the sun warming his face. And I watched him, my heart aching. He looked so at peace, so unguarded. I wanted to freeze this moment, keep him like this forever. I sat beside him, pulling out my sketchbook. My pencil moved without thought, tracing the curve of his jaw, the way his hair fell across his forehead. I'd drawn him before, but never with him right there, so close I could hear his breathing. What are you working on? He asked, opening one eye. I snapped the book shut, my face burning. Just the meadow. He grinned, sitting up. Liar. Let me see. Before I could stop him, he grabbed the sketchbook, flipping it open to the page I'd been working on. His grin faded, replaced by something softer, unreadable. This is me, he said, almost a whisper. Yeah, I admitted, my voice barely audible. It's you. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine, and for a moment, I thought he'd say something that would change everything. But he just handed the book back, his fingers brushing mine. It's good, he said quietly. Really good. The moment hung there, fragile as glass, and I wanted to shatter it, to tell him everything. But fear won again, and I just nodded, shoving the sketchbook into my pack. We ate lunch in silence, the meadow's beauty mocking my cowardice. The trail grew harder after that, the path narrowing as it climbed toward the pass. The wind picked up, whistling through the rocks, and I focused on my steps, trying to outrun my thoughts. Ethan was ahead, his red jacket bright against the gray stone. But he kept glancing back, like he was checking I was still there. It made my chest ache. Near the pass, the trail opened to a narrow ledge with a dizzying drop to one side. Ethan stopped, his face pale. "You good?" I asked, stepping closer. He nodded, but his hands were clenched. Just not great with heights. It was the first time I'd ever seen him scared, and it hit me hard. Ethan, fearless Ethan, was human after all. "Take my hand," I said, holding it out. He hesitated, then grabbed it. His grip tight. His palm was warm, calloused, and for a moment, it was just us, holding on against the wind and the drop and the weight of everything unsaid. We made it across, collapsing onto solid ground, both of us laughing from relief. "Thanks," he said, still holding my hand for a second longer than he needed to. My heart pounded, and I knew this was it. Tonight, by the fire, I'd tell him. I had to. We camped in a sheltered hollow, the pass looming above us. Ethan built the fire, his movements quick, like he was trying to keep busy. I watched him, my resolve hardening. As the stars came out, I took a breath, ready to speak, but he beat me to it. "Luke," he said, his voice low, "there's something I need to tell you." Ethan's words hung in the air, sharp and unexpected, like a crack in the ice. The fire snapped between us, its light flickering across his face, and I saw something I'd never seen before: fear, raw and unguarded. My own confession, the one I'd been rehearsing all day, lodged in my throat, drowned out by the sudden weight of his. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. My heart was a drumbeat, loud and unsteady, as I braced for whatever he was about to say. He looked down, poking at the fire with a stick, the flames casting shadows that danced across his clenched jaw. "I've been figuring some things out," he said, each word deliberate, like he was stepping across a minefield. "About myself. About us. Us." The word hit me like a punch, stealing my breath. I wanted to ask what he meant, to demand clarity, but my mouth wouldn't move. He glanced up, his hazel eyes catching the firelight, and I saw the same vulnerability I'd been carrying for years. "I've never told anyone this," he continued, his voice low, almost lost in the wind. "But being out here, with you, it's making it hard to keep pretending." My mind reeled. Pretending? Ethan, the guy who'd dated half the girls in our high school, who'd always seemed so sure of himself. I leaned forward, my hands gripping my knees to keep them from shaking. Pretending what? I managed. He swallowed hard, looking away, out toward the dark silhouette of the pass. "I've always known I was different, not like everyone else. But I pushed it down. You know, told myself it was just a phase, that I'd get over it." He laughed, a bitter sound. "Turns out, you don't get over who you are." The world tilted. Was he saying what I thought he was? My secret, the one I'd carried like a wound, suddenly felt less lonely, but no less terrifying. "Ethan," I said, my voice cracking, "are you saying?" He met my eyes, and for the first time, I saw him really saw him. Not the golden boy, not the quarterback, but Ethan, scared and human and breaking open. "I'm gay, Luke," he said, the words rushing out like a dam breaking. "I've known for years, but I couldn't. I didn't know how to deal with it. Not with my family. Not with you." I stared at him, my heart a wildfire. All this time, I'd been hiding, thinking I was alone in this. And he'd been hiding too. The irony was cruel, but the relief was overwhelming. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to reach across the fire and pull him close. But I was frozen, my mind racing to catch up. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice thick with emotion. He shrugged. A small, broken gesture. Same reason you've been acting weird this whole trip. I guess. I was scared. Scared you'd look at me differently. Scared I'd lose you. Lose me. The words echoed my own fears. And something in me snapped. Ethan, I said, leaning closer. I've been scared too. Because I'm gay. And I'm in love with you. The silence that followed was deafening. The fire's crackle the only sound. His eyes widened. Shock and something else, hope, flickering across his face. You? What? He whispered. I love you. I said again. The words spilling out now. Unstoppable. I've loved you since we were kids. I didn't tell you because I thought you were straight. Thought you'd hate me. Thought. He cut me off, his hand reaching across the fire to grab mine. His grip was tight, desperate, and I felt the world shift under me. Luke, he said, his voice breaking. I love you too. The confession hung between us, fragile and perfect. And for a moment, nothing else mattered, not the cold, not the mountains, not the years of silence. We sat there, hands clasped, the fire warming our faces, and I felt like I could breathe for the first time in years. But the moment didn't last. A rustling in the trees made us both jump, our hands pulling apart. The night was dark beyond the fire's glow, and the Rockies suddenly felt vast, unforgiving. What was that? Ethan whispered, his voice tense. I grabbed my flashlight, sweeping it across the trees. Nothing. Just the wind. Maybe. Or an animal. But the spell was broken, and the weight of what we'd just admitted settled in. We were out here, alone, with truths we couldn't take back. And the mountains didn't care. The fire had died to embers, casting a faint glow over our camp. But the air felt charged, like the moment before a storm. Ethan's confession, my own, hung between us, raw and unshakable. We sat closer now, our knees almost touching, but the rustling in the trees had put us on edge, a reminder of how exposed we were out here, and to each other. Probably just a deer, I said, trying to sound calm, but my voice betrayed me. I swept the flashlight again, the beam cutting through the dark, revealing nothing but pines and shadows. Ethan nodded, but his shoulders stayed tense, his eyes scanning the trees. Let's just stay close, he said, scooting nearer. His arm brushed mine, and despite the chill, warmth spread through me. We were different now, changed by words we couldn't unsay. But what came next? I didn't know, and the uncertainty was as thrilling as it was terrifying. We didn't speak for a while, just listened to the night, the wind, the distant howl of a coyote, the soft lap of the lake against the shore. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. How long? He asked, his voice soft. How long have you felt this way? I looked at him, his face half lit by the embers, and the truth spilled out. Since we were 16. That summer at your family's cabin, when we stayed up all night talking by the lake. You laughed at some stupid joke I made, and I just knew. He smiled. A small, wistful thing. I remember that night. I felt it too. You know. But I didn't understand it then. Thought it was just you being you. He paused, his fingers tracing patterns in the dirt. I didn't figure it out until college. And even then, I fought it. Told myself I could be someone else. Why didn't you say anything? I asked, echoing my question from earlier. It was an accusation, just a need to understand. He shrugged, his eyes distant. My dad. You know how he is. All that man-up bullshit. And I saw how people treated guys like us in high school. I didn't want that. Didn't want to lose what we had. He looked at me, his gaze steady. You're my best friend. Luke. More than that. I couldn't risk it. I nodded, my throat tight. I knew that fear too well. I get it. I said. I was scared you'd think I was. I don't know. Less. That you'd walk away. He reached for my hand again, his touch grounding me. I'm not walking away, he said, his voice fierce. Not now. Not ever. The words were a lifeline, but they also raised questions. What did this mean for us? A relationship? A secret? The Rockies felt like a bubble, a place where we could be honest. But what happened when we went back to Denver? To real life? Before I could ask, another sound cut through the night, a low, guttural growl. Closer this time. We froze, our hands still clasped. That's not a deer, Ethan whispered, his eyes wide. I grabbed the flashlight, my heart racing, and shone it toward the sound. Two glowing eyes stared back, low to the ground, maybe 20 yards away. A bear. A mountain lion. My mind flashed to the ranger's warnings about wildlife. The bear spray buried in my pack. Stay calm, I said, more to myself than to him. I stood slowly, pulling Ethan up with me, and reached for the spray. The eyes didn't move, just watched, unblinking. Ethan's hand tightened on mine, and I felt his fear mirror my own. Back away slowly, I whispered, guiding him toward the tents. The eyes followed us, but the animal didn't move. We reached the tents, ducking inside mine, the nylon walls feeling flimsy against whatever was out there. We sat, breathless, listening as the night went quiet again. That was intense, Ethan said, his voice shaky but laced with a nervous laugh. He was still holding my hand, and neither of us let go. Yeah, I said, my pulse slowing. Too intense. We sat there, the adrenaline fading, replaced by the weight of our confessions. The danger outside had forced us closer, but it also reminded me how fragile this was, our truth, our safety, our future. I looked at Ethan, his face inches from mine, and knew we couldn't stay in this moment forever. But for now, it was enough. The tent felt smaller with Ethan beside me, our shoulders pressed together. The bear spray clutched in my hand. The night was silent now, but my heart hadn't slowed, caught between the fear of whatever lurked outside and the electric awareness of him. His confession, mine, had torn down walls we'd built over years. But what stood in their place was new, uncharted, and terrifying. You think it's gone? Ethan whispered, his voice barely audible over the rustle of the tent. Hope so, I said, peering through the mesh window. The darkness gave nothing away. I set the spray down, my hand shaking slightly, and turned to him. His face was close, his breath warm in the cold air. And for a moment, I forgot the danger outside. All I saw was him. Luke, he said, his voice soft but urgent. What do we do now? With this? He gestured between us, his eyes searching mine. I swallowed, my mouth dry. I don't know, I admitted. I've wanted physio for so long, but I never thought. I trailed off. The words too big, too raw. What do you want? He looked down, his fingers brushing mine. Tentative. I want you, he said, so quietly I almost missed it. But I'm scared. Scared of screwing this up. Of what it means when we leave here. Me too, I said, my voice cracking. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel this. It's killing me. He nodded, his jaw tight. Same. Then, slowly, he leaned forward, his forehead resting against mine. It was the closest we'd ever been, and my heart pounded so loud I was sure he could hear it. Can I? He started, his voice trembling. I didn't let him finish. I closed the gap, kissing him, soft at first, then deeper, desperate. His lips were warm, tasting faintly of salt and coffee. And for a moment, the world disappeared, the tent, the mountains, the fear. It was just us, finally honest, finally together. He pulled back, breathless, his eyes wide but bright. God. Luke. He whispered, a smile breaking through. I've wanted to do that for so long. I laughed, the sound shaky but real. Me too. We kissed again, slower this time, and it felt like a promise. But the moment was cut short by another rustle outside. Sharper now, closer. We froze, our hands still tangled together. I grabbed the bear spray again, my pulse spiking. Stay here, I whispered, unzipping the tent and stepping out. Flashlight in one hand, spray in the other. The beam swept the clearing, catching a flash of Fura black bear, sniffing our packs by the fire pit. My heart stopped, but I kept my voice steady. Ethan, get the air horn. He scrambled out, blowing the horn, the sound piercing the night. The bear startled, lumbering off into the trees. And we stood there, panting, adrenaline coursing through us. That was too close, Ethan said, his voice shaky but laced with relief. We checked the camp, securing our food in a bear bag high in a tree, and crawled back into the tent. The danger had passed, but it left us raw, hyper-aware of how quickly things could change. We lay down, side by side, not touching but close enough to feel each other's warmth. Luke, Ethan said after a long silence, when we get back to Denver, what happens? I stared at the tent's ceiling, the question heavy. We figure it out, I said. Together. No more hiding. He reached for my hand, squeezing it. Together, he echoed. Sleep didn't come easy, not with the memory of his lips on mine, the bear's eyes in the dark, the weight of a future we'd just begun to imagine. But for the first time, I felt hope real. Fragile hope that we could be more than friends, more than a secret. Morning light filtered through the tent, soft and golden, but the air was heavy with the weight of what we'd shared. Ethan lay beside me, still asleep, his chest rising and falling, his face peaceful in a way I'd never seen. Last night's kiss, his confession, mine, felt like a dream, but his hand still rested near mine, grounding me in the truth. We'd crossed a line we couldn't uncross. I slipped out quietly, starting a fire to boil water, my mind racing. The Rockies loomed around us, vast and indifferent, but they'd witnessed something sacred, two people finding each other after years of silence. Yet the real world waited below, with its judgments, its expectations. Could we carry this back to Denver? Could we be us out there? Ethan stirred, emerging from the tent with tousled hair and a shy smile. Morning, he said, his voice rough with sleep. He sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders brushed, and the simple act felt revolutionary. Morning, I replied, handing him coffee. Our fingers touched, and neither of us pulled away. We drank in silence, the mountains watching, and I felt a quiet strength growing between us. The final day's hike was easier, a descent through pine forests and open meadows, the trail leading us back to civilization. We talked more now, tentative at first, then freer about our fears, our families, the years we'd spent hiding. Ethan told me about his dad's expectations. The pressure to be the perfect son. I told him about my sketches. The ones of him I'd hidden. The nights I'd spent wondering if I'd ever be enough. As we neared the trailhead, the world felt closer, cars on a distant road. The hum of life beyond the mountains. Ethan stopped, turning to me, his face serious. Luke, I don't know what this looks like back home, but I know I want you in it. Not just as my friend. As more. My heart swelled, but fear crept in too. What about your family? My job. People aren't always kind. He took my hand, his grip firm. We'll figure it out. Together. I'm done running. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. Together, I said, and it felt like a vow. We reached the parking lot. Our packs lighter, but our hearts full. The Rockies stood behind us, silent witnesses to a truth that had changed us forever. We weren't just friends anymore. We were something new, something real, something worth fighting for. As we drove back to Denver, Ethan's hand rested on mine. A quiet promise. The road ahead would be hard, families to face, truths to tell, a world that wouldn't always understand. But we'd climbed mountains together, faced bears and storms and our own fears. We could face this too. The city skyline appeared, a reminder of the life we were returning to. But it wasn't the same life. We weren't the same. We'd gone hiking in the Rockies, two friends carrying secrets. And what happened up there, love? Honesty. Courage had changed us forever. Together, we'd find a way to live that truth. Not just in the mountains, but in the world below.